Alright, so some woodworking myths are harder to kill than Steven Seagal. They just kind of permeate throughout the woodworking community until you just kind of take them as fact. But the truth? The truth is that these myths are holding you back, wasting your time, and I hate to say it, even costing you money. So today we're going to get you some of your sanity, time, and money back by dispelling some of the biggest myths in woodworking. Hi, my name is Daniel, and I like to make stuff out of wood and make tip, tool, and build videos for beginner to intermediate woodworkers. And probably like you, I do it all from a relatively small space. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can see more. All right, let's get back to the video. If you've watched enough woodworking YouTube, you might be led to believe that accuracy is of the utmost importance. It isn't. I promise you it isn't. At least not in the way that would lead you to acquire a shop full of NASA-engineered measuring devices. Listen, wood moves, your tools have limitations, and your hands aren't robotic precision instruments. At least not yet. In reality, close enough is usually good enough. What actually matters more than accuracy is repeatability. And in a lot of cases, if all your pieces match, your project will probably come together just fine, even if they're all slightly off from the exact measurement you were aiming for. Consistency is what really matters. A table leg that is 1/32 of an inch off? Not a big deal. But a table where each leg is of a different length is a wobbly mess.
Mojo, can I give you a little advice?
Yeah.
Nobody likes a wobbly table.
And the easiest way to achieve that repeatability is through the use of stop blocks. Rather than measuring on the workpiece for each cut, then trying to cut accurately on that line each time, you measure one time, set a stop, then cut each piece to the same exact dimension. It's kind of the opposite of the old measure twice, cut once thing. Here, you measure once and cut, as many times as you want. But circling back to accuracy real quick. Referential measurement is far more accurate than measuring anything with some space-age ruler. And if you're unfamiliar with what referential measurement is, it's simply referring to your workpiece for the measurement. For example, as I'm measuring for the stretcher for the stool, I'm loosely measuring where I'm going to make the initial cut, then cut the piece intentionally slightly long. I then take it back over to my piece to see how much more material I need to remove. Then I just nibble it down for another 1 or 2 cuts until it's a perfect fit. And another example from the same project, when I did my half lap, rather than trying to measure the width of the piece so I can cut my half lap, I just used the piece as reference when I set up my jig. And the result? A perfectly fitting joint. So just go ahead and delete those fancy rulers from your shopping cart. You know, the ones promising accuracy to 1/1 billionth of an inch. I promise you, your money's better spent elsewhere. I know we've heard it all before, probably more than a few times. A woodworker can never have enough clamps. Well, for this one, again, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to call shenanigans.
Shenanigans! Shenanigans! Shenanigans!
All you need is a few clamps to get started. Like these. These are the clamps I started my collection with. I would add clamps as I went when the project called for it. I'd also pick up a clamp here and there when they were on sale, and there were clamps that I knew I'd need later. And many years later, this is my clamp collection now. And I know, my clamp collection doesn't quite reach influencer levels, but I've never needed more than these for any project that I've done. Although I have been close. And if you're looking to start or expand your clamp collection and you're looking for the best bang for your buck, the answer is pipe clamps. Pipe clamps, pipe clamps, pipe clamps. And here's why. Pipe clamps are very strong and easy to adjust. They're actually easier to exert clamping force than parallel clamps are too. They're customizable. When I needed a 7-foot clamp for my dining table build, I went to Home Depot to get a 10-foot pipe, and I had the guy at Home Depot cut and thread the pipe into a 7-foot section and a 3-foot section, which they do for free, by the way. And it's actually cheaper to buy the bigger pipe and cut it into the sizes you want than to buy the smaller pre-cut sizes. And because the ends are threaded, you can easily connect them back together if you want to make a longer clamp. Also, since the clamp fixtures are removable, you can save a little bit more money by transferring fixtures between different size pipes as you need them if you want to, rather than buying a fixture for each pipe. So I know they're not as sexy as parallel clamps, but pound for pound, pipe clamps are some of the best clamps you can buy. But don't make the same mistakes that I made when I bought mine. 1. Get the galvanized steel instead of the black steel pipe, because the black steel tends to leave stains on the wood during glue up. 2. Get the 1/2 inch pipe instead of the 3/4 inch pipe. It's cheaper, lighter, and strong enough to get the job done. And 3. Get the 10-foot pipe and have them cut it and thread it to the sizes you want, rather than just buying the shorter pipes. Your wallet will definitely thank you. One of the biggest myths that keep people from getting more into woodworking is the belief that you have to have a big shop to build anything worthwhile. But the truth is, in a well-organized small shop, you can build just about anything you want to build. My shop is 190 square feet, and I built some pretty big things, like a 7-foot dining table and 8-foot raised garden beds, and probably the most cumbersome thing I built, this shelf right here. Man, that thing was heavy. Now, do I have enough room to do production work? No. But I mean, what are you going to do? I got to make some sacrifices. So the way I see it, complaining about having a small shop would be like me complaining about getting old. I mean, it's better than the alternative. What I mean by that is having a small shop is better than having no shop at all. But what if you do have no shop at all? What can you do? Well, that was the position I was in my earlier years of woodworking. And for that, I tried to carve out a little bit of space in my garage where I could put a work table. Make sure the table is on wheels so you can roll it outside when the project calls for it or when the weather's nice. Because there's nothing like doing some woodworking outside on a nice day. And for the space you carve out inside the garage, try to locate it close to the garage door so that you can open it up easily and expand your operations outside when needed. And as you can see, my work table housed almost all of my tools underneath it. My miter saw, router, circular saw, everything went under there. So you don't need a big shop for woodworking. I mean, you don't need a shop at all. My shop was basically a 6x3 rolling table. Oh, and if you don't have room for a permanent work table, you can use something like these centipede workstands or sawhorses to set up a quick workstation in a matter of minutes. A close cousin of the "you need a big shop for woodworking" myth is the
"it takes $10,000 worth of tools to build anything decent"
myth. And listen, I get it. Tools are cool. I mean, you're looking at a guy who owns more than 15 routers. But here's the deal. A high-end tool might make a job quieter or more comfortable or offer some other bells and whistles, but I promise you, a fest tool will ruin your project just as quickly as a win if you're not paying attention to tool setup, measurements, grain direction, or one of the many other things that go into being a good woodworker that has nothing to do with the cost of your tools. Because the reality is, woodworking is not about how much you spend on your tools. It's about learning how to use the ones you have. An example of that for me is this. This is my family's dining room table. This is one of my favorite builds to date and one of my first videos I posted on this channel. And if you watch that video, you'll see that most of the heavy lifting was done by a job site table saw, a skill router, and a Ryobi router table. And I even threw in a couple of pocket holes for good measure. So if you watch that video, you'll probably see me using a lot of the same tools that you own. But what you won't see in that video is a stock blade anywhere. Spending a few extra dollars on upgrading your blades from the stock blade that comes on the saw to anything in the Diablo class or higher is the best way to take your tool from good to great. And it's not just saw blades. The same thing applies to router bits and sandpaper. I happen to think that Freud and Whiteside make some pretty good router bits, and 3M Extract is my sandpaper of choice. But regardless of the brand you choose, you'll get far more bang for your buck upgrading your saw blade than you will upgrading your saw. Okay, for this next one, we're going to play a little game. It's called Two Truths and a Lie. I'm going to give you 3 statements, and you have to tell me which 2 are true and which one is a lie. Okay? Here we go. Using hand tools makes you more of a woodworker. Using pocket holes makes you less of a woodworker. Woodworking with hardwoods makes you more of a woodworker. Okay? You got your answers locked in? All right. And the answer is, it's a trick question. They're all lies. Because there's no such thing as more or less of a woodworker. I don't care if you make your crosscuts like this, Or like this. Whether you work with slabs or pallets, black walnut or fence pickets, or a CNC or hand tools. If you're making something out of wood, you're doing something that most of the 8 billion people on this planet simply cannot do. And that makes you a woodworker. And if anybody tries to tell you otherwise, tell them to come see me. All right, y'all take it easy.